How would you describe Germans? Being a bit complicated? Having a lot of rules? Having a lot of administrative regulations and stuff? Yeah, maybe you are right. For example, concerning your PhD, you have to check in an administrative manner what is your role, what do you have to do. Being accepted as a PhD does not automatically mean that your supervisor has a work contract and payment for you. Being accepted as a PhD makes you a PhD. That means your supervisor has to help you, guide you, read your stuff that you hand over, all these things. This is PhD related. And of course you are enrolled as a PhD. But maybe your supervisor at the same time is your boss. And this is your second role. You are an employee of Münster University and you have rights and duties linked to that role of being an employee. This might include teaching. This might include doing work, additional work for your supervisor, if he or she demands that. Do you have your own funding and you just are enrolled PhD? Or do you have a work contract? And the second role is you're employed. I'd recommend really to talk with your supervisor intensely in the starting phase. What are her expectations? What are your expectations? Talk about that. Communicate frankly and freely of what you expect and what is important to you. And allow your supervisor to do the same. This is the best thing you can do in the starting phase. Basically, there are two documents that are important for doctoral candidates. The first one is the doctoral regulation. Every doctoral degree has its own doctoral regulation. Unfortunately, quite often in German, try to find somebody who helps you to understand and go through that. What are the requirements, maybe besides writing the thesis? Are there additional courses, conferences, teaching, whatever? This all is written down in the doctoral regulation. Make sure you have it and make sure you understood it. The second one is the doctoral agreement with your supervisor or maybe with the institute. There might be further requirements that are more than written in the regulation. Make sure that you have all the information you have. And the agreement, this is something between you and your supervisor. How long does it take? What is the topic? What can you expect? Doctoral candidates, of course, have to finish their thesis. But on the other hand, there are the other duties you have to take care of. What may be tasks from your supervisor. So how to prioritize that? I'd recommend to have some kind of plan and to discuss this with your supervisor. There will be time spans when you focus more on your thesis. But then, of course, there will be time spans when you focus more on topics related to the institute or to your doctoral supervisor's needs. Make sure that there's some kind of balance. Times reserved to the major part for the thesis, but also times reserved to the major part for other things. In the end, there has to be a good balance and a good plan that allows you to finish in time. For after that time, maybe there will be no further funding. How to organize your work and your daily life as a PhD candidate? Well, that's basically up to you. Nobody will stand right behind you and give you the next task to do. Supervisors usually expect you to organize your own work, the whole process. The person responsible for the result is basically you. Hey, you're a researcher now, no longer a student. On the other hand, that means you are the only person taking care for work-life balance. Make sure that there are times and days where you can relax and calm down. You will need this in the long run. This is not a sprint. This is a marathon to go, and you need to make sure that you have still power in the last meters, in the last kilometer. So, organize your work on your own and make sure that you find a good balance that allows you in the long run to be successful. Science means You never know what will happen next in your research. Of course, you have methods, you are familiar with the topics, but will the results really meet your expectations and the expectations of your supervisor? You have to find out. But be sure, nobody can fire you just because the results are not appropriate. Do not be afraid that you instantly lose your job or that your supervisor will no longer supervise you. Professors usually know that it's not that easy to have good results. Of course, they expect you to do your best to get them. But if you have difficulties, communicate openly with your supervisor, check the methods, and do not be afraid and do not hesitate to address this early enough before things get worse. In the end, doing your doctoral degree and having a supervisor is a very, let's say, human thing. That means things can go wrong. Most doctoral candidates will succeed and have a good relationship with their supervisor. But if there is some difficulty, if something goes wrong, there are many supporting institutions at Münster University. Feel free to address Graduate Centre. Feel free to address other people in your faculty, maybe the board for doctoral candidates. There are many opportunities. You are not left alone if there's a conflict. But once again, please address those people, address those institutions early enough before things escalate. In an early stage, quite often, we will find a good solution for whatever happened.